Hi, my name is Daniel Kane. I'm a Chrome Customer Success Engineer based in Dublin. And in this webinar, we're going to take a look at managing applications in Chrome OS. Just in terms of the agenda, we're going to start with a brief intro to the admin console. We're then going to look at adding and configuring Chrome extensions, managing Android apps on Chrome devices, adding progressive web apps and web links. We'll then look at some additional policies that can be applied to apps and extensions on managed Chrome devices, and we'll finish up with a quick look at managing apps in managed guest mode and kiosk mode. So the Google Admin Console is accessed at admin.google.com. It provides a single management console for multiple Google products, including G Suite and Chrome Enterprise. And specifically for app management on Chrome OS, it provides a single place to manage Chrome apps and extensions, Android apps, PWAs, and web links. Administrators have controls to allow or block specific apps, to force install apps, and to pin them to the taskbar. So let's first take a look at Chrome apps and extensions. So after logging into the admin console at admin.google.com, this is the screen that you're presented with. And the number of tiles here may differ depending on your level of access. But specifically for this demo, we're looking at the devices section. So if we click into that, that brings us to this devices view. And then from there, we want to go to Chrome management on the left-hand side. So on the Chrome management screen for this demo, we're looking at apps and extensions. So we want to click into the apps and extensions section, which brings us to this view. So currently we've no apps or extensions installed, so our list here is empty. App management is all user policy. So in this example, we want to make sure that we're in the OU, in our OU tree on the left, that contains our users. So in my case, I just have an OU called users, so I want to make sure that I've got that selected. So with that done, then I'm going to hover over the yellow plus icon in the bottom right. And then this presents me with a list of different types of apps and extensions that I can install. So for this first example, we're looking at Chrome apps, and specifically looking at Chrome apps from the Chrome Web Store. So if I click on this first link, the one with the Chrome logo on it, I'll get this dialog box pop up. And this is a view of the Chrome Web Store. So in this particular case, I'm going to use the search box to look for the Google Keep extension. So if I just do a quick search for Keep, I should get a list of results back, and the Google Keep Chrome extension is the first one in my list. So I want to add that, so I'm just going to click on the select button here, and then that adds Google Keep to my list of apps and extensions. So from here, I have this allow install option. So just by selecting it, the default is to allow install. But I've got a few options here. So if I open up this menu, I can allow install, I can block the app or extension, I can force install the app or extension, and I can force install and pin. And pinning would just add it to the taskbar at the bottom of your Chrome OS screen. So in this particular case, I'm going to force install this extension. So I just choose force install from the list. And then anytime I make a change in the screen, I just need to make sure that I press save up in the top right. So that's all that's to adding an extension from the Chrome Web Store. Pretty quick, pretty easy. Another option that we have, though, is adding an extension by ID. So for this example, what I'm going to do is go to the Chrome Web Store in the browser. So I'm just going to chrome.google.com/web store, which will bring me to this screen. I'm then going to do a search here. So for this example, I'm looking for Citrix Workspace, which is a Chrome app. So I've typed that in here. I press enter, and it will bring me back a list of results. So this is an app. So if I scroll down through my list, it will be the first one under apps usually. So I want to click into the Citrix Workspace listing. So click on the name or the icon, and that will bring me to the listing for that page. And the reason I've come to the Chrome Web Store is to get the ID, right? So now that I'm on this page, up here in the top in my navigation bar, I've got the ID as part of the URL to the app. So I'm going to copy this ID from the Chrome Web Store and then bring that back to my admin console. So back on my admin console, I want to click on the yellow plus icon again to add a new app. In this case, I'm going to go to this icon, which is the one to add an extension by ID. And then I get this dialog box appearing, right? So it's looking for an extension ID. I just picked an extension ID from the Chrome Web Store, so I just want to paste that in here. And then you have a couple of options, right? So from this menu, you can choose to install the app from the Chrome Web Store, or you can specify a URL where the extension is hosted. So this method can be used if you're hosting your extensions yourself. So if you don't want to use the Chrome Web Store to host your extension, maybe you want to keep it internal on your LAN, or you've got your own cloud hosting somewhere that you want to use to package up and host your extension, you can do that from here as well. But to keep things simple, we're just dealing with an app that's on the Chrome Web Store. So I've entered in my extension ID. I'm going to leave the from the Chrome Web Store as the default and click Save. So now I've added Citrix Workspace to my list of managed apps and extensions. And again, I've got Allow Install as my default. I can go to this menu and choose the appropriate settings. So for this app, I'm going to go with Force Install and Pin. And I want it to show up on the taskbar at the bottom so that my users know where to go and how to find Citrix Workspace easily. So I'm going to choose that setting. Again, just make sure I press Save, and then that saved that to my list of installed and managed apps and extensions. So one other nice thing that we can do with apps and extensions from the Chrome Web Store is to configure them. So this is particularly relevant for apps and extensions that are built for enterprise use, and the developers can include the ability for you to upload a JSON file that configures the app or the extension. So what I've got here is a config file for Citrix Workspace. This particular example is pretty empty, but usually what you're looking to do is add things like URLs, right? So you can see if you go down to like line 17 is looking for a URL, this would be the URL to my external Citrix host, and then an internal one on line 23 would be potentially a different gateway that I've got. So this is kind of the default or the empty template for the config file, and you would enter your own values here depending on your Citrix setup in your organization. But once you've configured that, if you save that and go back to the admin console, if you click on Citrix Workspace as an example, you get additional settings in the box on the right-hand side. And note that we've got towards the bottom, we've got this option to enter a JSON file under policy for the extension, right? So you can either copy the text and paste it directly in here, or you can use the upload arrow and go and navigate, find the JSON file and upload the file. So in my case, I'm just going to paste in the values. So these are the values that I had in my text file. And again, just make sure that I save my settings. So the result of that is if I go onto a Chromebook and log in with a user that's in the same OU that I've configured this Chrome app for, once I've logged in, if I open the Chrome browser and go to Chrome policy, Chrome:// in the browser, it will give me a list of all the policies that have been applied to my Chromebook. And in particular, down here at the bottom, you'll see that there's policy for Citrix Workspace. And the settings component here is the config file that my administrator has uploaded for me. So this would save me as the end user from having to manually type in the URL of our Citrix environment. The administrator has set that policy for me and pushed it down via policy. So all I need to do is put in my username and password, and I'm straight into my corporate environment. Okay, so moving on from Chrome apps and extensions to Android apps. So we on Chromebooks, we have access to Google Play, and conveniently we use the very same management interface for managing Android apps. So if we go back to this apps and extensions page, again, hover over the yellow plus, and then this time we want to go to the option to add from Google Play. And that will pop up this dialog box for us, which is, again, a view into Google Play. So where previously we were getting a view into the Chrome Web Store, we're now getting a view into Google Play. From here, we've, again, got a search box, and let's go and search for the Google Keep Android app this time. So if we enter Keep and do a search, we get our list of results back. Then clicking into the Google Keep listing, we get the full listing back. It tells us all the information, gives a screenshot similar to what we would see if we went to Google Play on a mobile device. From here, we've got this option to press select. So if we press select here, then we get this interstitial that just, as an administrator, we have the ability to accept all of the permissions on behalf of our user. So the Google Keep app is looking for access to identity, to contacts, location, photos, media, and files, and storage. So as an administrator, I would scan through these, make sure I'm happy giving these permissions into our organization, and then press accept. Okay. So then that brings us back to this page again. So very similar to what we've seen for Chrome apps and extensions, we now have the option to allow install, force install, and pin or block for the Android app. So again, this time I'll force install and pin. And then I can just clear my filters at the top, and I'll get back to a list of all of my managed apps and extensions. So just one thing to note, the one that I just added at the top, you can see the little Android icon to show that it's an Android app, whereas the two below, the Citrix Workspace and the Keep Chrome extension, are showing the Chrome icon, showing that they're Chrome apps and extensions that have come from the Chrome Web Store. Just one other thing to note about managed Google Play, you do have options here to publish private apps. So if you've got applications that you've built internally, you can push them via the admin console to Google Play and then manage them in the very same way. You also don't have to force install all of your apps. Sometimes what you want to do is you want to allow a set of applications and allow the user to go and hit either the Chrome Web Store or Google Play and choose which applications they want to install. So the Organize Apps option that's down here as well, it lets you set up like a landing page for your users and a catalog where they can go and choose the applications that they wish to install. The last option we have for managing applications is around progressive web apps and web links, and this is quite new in Chrome. So again, back on the same apps and extensions page, if we hover over the plus again, we now have this new option that lets you add by URL. So if we click into this, you get, again, another dialog box, and you're just asked for a URL. So the Financial Times, as an example, has a nice progressive web app that works offline, caches data, all those nice things that you can do with progressive web apps. So as an example, let's pick that. And then below that, you have this option either to open in a new tab or open in a separate window. If you choose to open in a separate window, it opens without any of the top menus or other tabs or anything. It opens like a native application, which is really nice as well. And the same, it will open any URL. It doesn't have to be a progressive web app to do that. So users and admin can choose what the default behavior looks like here. So my scenario here, I'm choosing that app.ft.com will open in a separate window. So for my user, that will look like an application. So if I click save on that, and then just like any others, I get the force install, the force and pin, In this case, I'm just going to leave it at force install. Once more, just clear my filters to get back to my list of apps. And as I said, it's a nice unified view across all of the different app types. You now have a PWA, you've got an Android app, and a Chrome app and a Chrome extension, all being managed through this single pane of glass. Okay, so we've covered how to add apps and extensions. We do have some additional settings that we can set for these applications. So the first thing to look at is just what we do with applications and extensions that have not been explicitly set here. So usually in a managed environment, you do not want that the user has free reign to install any app, any extension from the Chrome Web Store or from Google Play. So you as an administrator have options. So you can either block all apps and extensions except what you've got configured in your list. You can allow apps from the Play Store, but not from the Chrome Web Store, or vice versa. Or you can allow free reign to do with it whatever you wish. But I think in most enterprise domains, block all other apps and extensions would kind of be the default. So let's set that and let's press save. And then the other lot of features we have is under this additional settings section. So if you just click on the cog over here on the right, this brings you to this additional application settings page. And there's a few interesting settings in here. So the very first one just turns the access to Android apps on or off for users in this OU. So usually if you're using Android apps, you would want to allow this, but you do have a setting to turn it off. The allowed types of apps and extensions, this applies to Chrome apps and extensions, and primarily on Chrome browser. So you can do things like turn off themes if you don't want the user to be able to install a Chrome theme in their browser, as an example. The apps and extensions installed sources. So this would be for customers that are hosting their own Chrome apps and extensions outside of the Chrome Web Store. So here you can list out URLs that are permitted for adding apps and extensions. And somewhat recently, we changed the way that we package Chrome apps and extensions before you upload them to the Chrome Web Store. You have an option here to allow the older packaging mechanism on your managed devices if you wish. Usually you would not want that. You would want to repackage your extension and upload it again, but you do have an option here. I think the more interesting settings come when we get down into this permissions and URL section. So for Chrome apps and extensions, every app and extension has a manifest file that specifies what APIs that app and extension uses. And as an administrator, you can come into this setting and you can say, I don't want any apps or extensions to use a particular API. So for example, you could say, I don't want any proxy apps and extensions. So you could just check that checkbox. So this would be a way that you could say that the Chrome Web Store is allowed for everybody, and you can go and install any app and extension you wish from the Chrome Web Store, with the exception of ones that use particular APIs, and you can control that here. The other interesting setting is this runtime blocked hosts and runtime allowed hosts. So with this, you could say that you are allowed to install, for example, a password manager extension, but you're not allowed to use that extension on our internal intranet sites. And you could do that by adding the URL of your intranet into the runtime blocked hosts. And in that way, then the user installs the extension. If they're on the public internet somewhere, they can use the extension. But as soon as they hit one of your URLs that's blocked, all of the extensions would then be blocked on those hosts. Towards the bottom here, then, you're similar to what I showed on the Play Store, where you can have a catalog of apps. On the Chrome Web Store, you can direct your users to a particular page in the Chrome Web Store, which is nice. There's an option here to either allow or block your users from uploading apps and extensions into the Chrome Web Store. And then you've got a setting here for reporting around Android apps. So you can turn that on or off from here too. The other thing that you can do is if you click onto a Chrome app or extension, so in this case, I'm going to click on the Google Keep Chrome extension. You do have the permissions and URL access per app. So what I showed previously was the ability to restrict, for example, VPN, access to the VPN API for every app and extension, or to allow certain hosts and block certain hosts for all apps and extensions. This gives you the ability to do a similar set of configuration and of settings, but per extension. So if I change this to custom permissions for this app or extension, I get that list of permissions again. And for example, I might want to block audio capture and set proxy just for this one extension. Click done, and then that's set. And similarly, I can do the same for blacklist hosts and allowed hosts. So if I just wanted to block the Keep extension on a particular host, I can do that too. Again, as always, once you've made changes on this page, you should click Save to apply them. And then just very quickly, everything I've shown so far has been around applying, managing apps and extensions and applying settings for users. You can also manage apps and extensions in Manage Guest Session. My point here is that the UI and everything is extremely similar. So all you really need to do is switch. There's these three tabs at the top. You've got users and browsers, you've got kiosks, and you've got Manage Guest Session. So you just need to make sure that you're on the Manage Guest Session tab. And then the other important thing is to make sure that you've moved off of your users OU and you've moved to the OU that you want to configure Manage Guest Session on. So this will be an OU that contains devices instead of users. And then once you've done that, you've got the same set of options, right? So you hover over the yellow plus, you can add a Chrome app or extension from the Chrome Web Store. You can add a Chrome app or extension by ID, and you can add a PWA or a web URL by URL. So I'm not going to go through the process because it's exactly the same as with users and browsers, but just to show that that's how you would configure settings for Manage Guest. And then finally in this section, just around kiosk mode. So kiosk mode is running a single application in full screen on the device with no easy way for the user to break out of that or to go to a browser and do something different. So again, very similar to what we've been doing previously. You just need to make sure you're on the kiosks tab across the top. Again, you need to make sure you're in the correct OU. And again, with a kiosk, there's no user logged in. So these apps would be applied to an OU that contains devices and not users. And then you would choose your Chrome app as an example that you want to install. So let's quickly just run through that. So in this case, I'm just going to go to the Chrome Web Store again. So the very same as we saw previously. Going to pick an app that I know runs in full screen kiosk mode. Then I have a couple of different options. So where I didn't have this option in user and browser settings, I now have this auto launch option. And once I've chosen at least one application, it will show up in the list. So I can say that Chrome Sign Builder in this case will auto launch. So as soon as the device in this OU turns on, this app will run in full screen mode. And also note the box on the right-hand side is slightly different, right? So you can do things like manage power, turn the virtual keyboard on or off, those kind of things that are not available in the user and browser settings, but are in kiosk. Also, then the very bottom, you've got some settings around health monitoring that are unique to kiosk mode as well. Again, just make sure you're saving all of your settings as you make the changes on this page. And that's all I've got for you on apps and extensions. Again, please do let us know if you have any follow-on questions or anything after this presentation. Thank you.